joining me in making the granny square earrings. You can find a full list of materials in the description below. So our first step is going to be to make one of our little granny squares. To do this, we're going to start by picking up 15 O's, 6 15 O's, and just go ahead and thread those on your needle. You want them close to the end of your thread, but you want to leave yourself a tail of thread about several inches, just so that you can attach a needle to it later. And then we're going to take our needle and we're going to go up through all those seed beads again. So we're going to pass through all 6 seed beads. And as we pull that, it will make it into a little circle. So once we get all of that slack thread out of there, it'll pull it into a nice tight little circle. So we're going to keep this thread tail out of the way, and we're going to pass through the next 15 O. And now we're going to start adding what looks like little spokes on a wheel. And we're going to, or little slices of a pie is a good way to think about it. So we're going to need the sides of our slices of pie, and then we're going to need our crust. So that's actually a really good way for me to think about it. I'm going to pick up the spokes, or what would be like the sides of my pie. So I'm going to pick up 2 11 O's, and that will be one of the sides or spokes. And then I'm going to pick up 3 delicas, and that's the outer edge of the piece. So that's like my crust. I prefer to think of pie than bicycle spokes. So let's stick with the pie analogy. So I've got one side of my slice of pie, I have my delicas, that's going to be the crust, and then I have another 2 11 O's, and that's going to form the other side of my little slice of pie. Once you've got those on there in that pattern, you're going to take your needle and just go back through that 11 O, or I'm sorry, go back through that 15 O that's in the center. We're working on the same 15 O. Give that a nice tight pull, and then you can see that that forms like a little triangle. So I have my sides and my crust of my pie. So I'm going to go on and continue adding slices of my pie until I'm all the way done and I meet back to this first one. To do that, I'm just going to move on to the next 15 O. So I'm always going to start with the 15 O. Slide my needle and thread through the 15 O. I'm going to pick up 2 11 O's and then 3 of my delicas. Let those fall down to the project, and then I'm going to share the previous set of 2 11 O's. That is going to be the other side of this little slice of my pie. So I'm going to go through the 2 11 O's, through the 15 O, and pull everything tight so I don't have any slack. So now I have 2 little wedges. I'm going to move on to the next 15 O and just repeat this, repeat the last step until I get back to where I started, and then I will finish it up there. So now that I have gone all the way around using all of my 15 O's except for one, I'm going to show you how to just do that last little piece of pie. So I've attached pieces of pie to all of my 15 O's. I have one left here. And so this one I'm going to treat a little bit differently because I have to fill in this gap here. I'm going to go through that last 15 O that I haven't done anything with. And then I'm going to share, so for the sides of my pie, I'm just not going to pick up any new pieces, any new 11 O's. I'm just going to share the 11 O's that are already there on either side of that 15 O. So I'll grab these 11 O's, and then I'm going to add 3 delicas, because I still need to add those delicas on the outside. And then I'm going to come back here and grab the 11 O's that are on the other side of that 15 O, and go through those as well as the 15-0. Pull that tight. And then I'm going to go up through the 15-0s again. And this has essentially completed the first step of adding all my little wheels or pieces of pie around that center set of 15-0s. So this is going to need a little help to make it look a little nicer. So what I'm going to do is, coming out of my 11-0s, I'm going to go through the outer rim here, the outer edge, or my crust, and I'm going to pick up all of the delicas in the groups of 3. I'm going to pick them all up in the groups of 3 that I added them, and I'm going to add between each one a little 15-0. And this will help fill in the gaps as well as help just give it a nice finished edge. So after I go through each group of 15-0s, or I'm sorry, go through each group of delicas, I'm going to add a 15-0. That 15-0 is just going to bridge the gap between the sets of delicas, and it will also help straighten out the edge, giving it a much cleaner line. So I went around the outside, all my delicas, added that 15-0, and now what I'm going to do is pass through the next set of delicas, and I'm going to get ready here to add more of these little granny squares, or pies as I like to think of them. So to do this, we're going to make the next 3 sections a little bit differently. This first one we started in the center with my group of 15-0s, but the rest, the next 3 sections that I'm going to add, I'm going to start all the same. So this is how I'm going to start those. Going through that set of 3 delicas, I'm going to pick a new colorway too. So let me push these little guys out of the way. And you can really do this with all the same colors or tons of different colors. And that's what I really like about it, is that it's a pretty versatile project that gives you lots of options, options for creativity, and really invites it. You don't have to feel like a slave to a color chart. So now what we're going to do is pick up 3 delicas in whatever contrasting color you want to pick for this next section. So I have this pale green color, and then go back through the delicas on my first section, and I'm looping them around so that the 3 delicas that I'm adding are sitting right next to the 3 delicas on the previous section. So there you go. Go back through the delicas that we just added. And now we get to the part where we're going to add our little triangle of pie. So I'm going to pick my 2 seed beads up for the side, and then I'm going to pick up my 15-0 for the very center. 2 11-0s for the side. Back up through my delicas. And now I formed the same sort of triangle, just starting at the other end of it. I'm going to take my needle and thread and go through my 11-0s and my 15-0. And now here, I'm going to pick up 5 more 11-0s, and that, when I add it to this little guy here, will give me my 6 15-0s. That will be the center of my little granny square. So I just need 5 more 15-0s. Do I have 5 there? Yep, I have 5. through that 15-0. And now I'm ready to continue and add my little slices of pie just like I did on this previous one. So I'm going to start by going through the next 15-0 here, 2 11-0s, 3 of my delicas, and I'm going to share these 11-0s here that are sitting next to where I'm working through the 15-0. I've completed another little triangle or slice of pie, and now on to the next 15-0. And I'm going to continue and finish it just like I did this one. I wanted to show you where to connect your third piece and your fourth piece once you get that done. So when I created this third piece here, what I did was I attached it and I started it exactly the way that I started the second piece that we just walked through. But because it is now touching 2 of my little granny squares, I'm just going to make sure that it has 2 connections. So I have the connection that I created when I started building it, and then I'm also going to just connect it to the other little granny square that it's sitting next to and touching. So I'm just going to take my thread and needle through the delicas on the set of delicas that are adjacent, sitting right across from the delicas of this little section here that I need to attach it to. And then I'm just going to go through the set of delicas on the section here, on this little blue section. And it's essentially the same step that we did at the beginning when we created the new granny square off of the existing one. But we're just going to make sure that we don't forget to do that connection. Otherwise, it'll be a little floppy and it won't hold together well. So whenever you add a new section, you just want to make sure that you don't forget to do that little attachment there. So now I'm going to finish this off by just adding another section here at the top. So you can see if I overlap this, this is what I have so far. So I just need my one more little section up here. And I'm going to do it the exact same way that I did this one down here. And then we'll be ready to do a little border on it. So now that I have completed all 4 of my granny squares, I'm going to add a border to the outside. You don't have to, it actually looks lovely just like this. And as long as you have all your connection points connected, then it really doesn't need anything else. You can just put a little loop at the top, put an ear wire, and you're set. Or you can also take it like this and make a little necklace out of it, put chain on either side, and then it's a nice little pendant. But I'm going to go one step farther with this and show you how to add the border on the outside. One of the reasons why I like this project is because it's really just a good color study. So the more color and the more opportunity to add layers of color, the better for me. So now that I have my thread, I have all my pieces connected, and I have my thread coming out of one of my granny squares here. I'm going to take my thread needle and I just want to follow my thread path through the project until I get to one of these sets of 3 delicas that's on the outside edge of the project. And I'm going to go through those delicas, and then I'm just going to pick a contrasting color that I want to go around this color delica. So I think I'm going to do my light green with that. And just like we did with our connection points, we're going to pick up a set of 3 delicas, and we're going to loop around, go back up through the delicas that are already on our project here. And I'm going to go through the 15-0 and the next set of delicas. I'm going to pick up another set of 3 delicas in that contrasting color, and again loop back through the delicas that are already on my project. So what that's doing is just adding that border color directly next to the existing color that's there. And I'm going to do this around the whole outside of my project. So every section of 3 delicas that is on the border, I'm going to add a contrast to that. And then once I have that done, I'll come back and fill that in. So continue by going around the whole outside of the project, adding a contrasting delica color. I finished adding all of the contrasting delicas to the outside in those groups of 3. So now I'm going to go through and fill in the gaps that were created when I did that. So starting with any one of these outside delicas, I'm going to take my thread through there, and then in each of these gaps that you have, you can fill in with 2 delicas. And you can get creative and you can add something else in there if you like a little crystal. But I'm going to just add 2 delicas just to fill in so I have a nice solid line of that color. Crystals would be really cute though. So I'm going to continue and add a couple more delicas here in the same color, and that just gives you a nice solid border. So now when you are in the corners here, what I found works really well is to pick up 1 color delica of the color that you are working on, and then 1 color of the color that you will be working on next. So that will give you a nice little transition there. And that will look pretty seamless on your outside edge there. So I'm going to continue all the way around here, adding the same color delica to all of the outside sections here to fill that in and give it a more complete look. Once I'm done with this, I'll then add a loop for the ear wire and they'll be ready to wear. So for my last step here, I'm going to decide which way I want my earrings to hang. So I already have one finished here, and I like that they're mix match because that gives you that real feeling of it being like an old quilt or granny square quilt where it was just sort of like all these little pieces that you had left over and you stitched them together. So I want to decide how I want them to hang so that I know where to put my ear wire on. And I like it like that with the purple at the top here instead of the, I like it with the purple at the top there, and that way it is different from this one, so it kind of offsets it. So now I'm going to take my nail and thread and go to the top, and this is where I'm going to add some seed beads so that I can just make a little loop to attach a set of ear wires. I'm going to use the delicas here that were the 2 delicas that I added to fill in the little gap when I just went around the edge in this last step. And you can pick up a wire guard or a jump ring, anything you want to, but I like just a little loop of seed beads. 5 should do it. I like having an odd number. So 5 15 seed beads, and go back through those 2 delicas just to make a nice little loop. And then you can always reinforce that, so just go back through all those beads again. And anytime you have a connection where a clasp or an ear wire is going to be hanging or attached, it's nice to just go back and reinforce that so that the wear and tear on that spot has a little extra thread going through it so that as it gets wear and tear, it's less likely to break. So now you're pretty much done. We're gonna just go through our piece here and tie off our thread. So I will try to meet my ends up here and tie that off. And it's always nice to go back through your project to stiffen it, especially with a piece like this that doesn't have a lot of, it's really just like a very flat piece. It's not something that has a lot of like bulky beads in it. It doesn't have a lot of dimension to kind of keep everything in place. So when you have flatter pieces like this, it is nice to go back through them with your thread and needle, and that way that extra thread will help stiffen your project and again just like keep everything in place. So now I have my two ends of my thread close together, and I will do a simple little overhand knot and go back in the other direction here. So this is a square knot. It's a nice little square knot, pull it tight. And then everyone seems to have their own little method for how to hide your thread. Whether you want to thread burn it down or use a nice sharp pair of scissors. I'm going to use these thread snips that I have close by, these slip-in snips, because these are remarkably sharp. So I'm going to use those today and trim that excess off. And then if you are not familiar with how to add an ear wire, very, very simple. The ear wire will have a little loop on there, and it will have a little slit in that loop, so you know that's where it's going to open. And you're just going to use a little pair of pliers here, flat nose pliers, open that loop, slide your earring on, close the loop, and you are all done. And then you've got a lovely, funky pair of earrings that will probably match anything you wear. Thanks for joining me on this project. The description below contains links to materials used in this design. Check out the Facebook group and share your version of this design and any changes that you made with the rest of the group. If you enjoyed this video, check out the next one.